detained, put away. Screw human rights. We can lock them up. And somehow this law passed. They said there was a lot of bullying in the background, but somehow this law passed. Anyone that was seen as a threat could be locked up and detained without their human rights. The second ink went to paper with this law, and it was passed through the varying governing bodies. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party started to round up all other political opponents. It's like the opposition party. It's like the Republicans getting into power and locking up the Democrats. The Democrats getting into power, locking up the Republicans. The Liberals getting into power, locking up the Labour. Labour getting into power, locking up the Liberals. Locking up the other team. They started to round them up and take them away. They decided that the opposition party was a threat, and they rounded these people up and took them away. And this is where the first Labour camps appeared. They were for political prisoners at first. They were rounding these individuals up. Now they started with political prisoners, and then they started with the intellectuals. Anyone that started to speak up, any kind of teachers or poets or people with influence, guys on the radio start going, I don't know if this is right. Like, do you really just lock people up, take them to these camps and force them to make ammunition and stuff like that? That would be taken away. You get a knock at the door at night, these brown shirts would be there, and they'd roll you on out. Now, throughout the Nazi Party's rise to power, they'd been pointing the finger at multiple groups of people, in particular the Jewish population. They were like, these guys stayed behind during the war, these guys rose prices on the business, these guys need to be locked up, these ones are the ones to blame. And people start to side with them. And at first they were sending the political prisoners there, and after this, they started to round up the Jewish population. They started to round up the communists. They started to even round up the homosexual population. The gypsies, I just heard then, exactly, the gypsies. Anyone they deemed as a threat to their ruling body was rounded up and sent to these. Anyone that couldn't work, my goodness, they took disabled children, disabled people. Unemployment was nearly on zero, which is virtually impossible, but somehow unemployment was ridiculous. So anyone that couldn't contribute to society, they were starting to round up and take to these camps. Now, at first they were labor camps. This is why the Nazi army was so powerful, so quick. Right after World War I, World War II appeared. World War II seemed to just occur, and they were so fast and ready to go because they had a slave labor working on the guns, working on the tanks, working on the munitions, working on the ships. They didn't have to pay these guys. My goodness, they didn't have to feed these guys. They just chucked them in, and when they died, they threw them away. Now, with the Jewish population, they had another issue. They had a subject to blame, and at first they rounded them up in ghettos. I mentioned these ghettos. We'll probably see one in Prague today, but they fenced off areas of the city, and they locked these people in there. They locked these people in there. They were starving. They were hungry. The sanitation of the area was not too good. After Adolf Hitler, Joseph Heinrich, and who else were there? A few other individuals. They sat down, Goebbels, they sat down and decided, we can't just lock these people up in these small ghettos. We got to do something about them. So what they decided was to send them to these labor camps. And the final solution was, when we sent them there, we would either get them to work, and if they weren't able to work, we would exterminate them. Absolutely horrible to fathom that someone actually thought of this. Let's just kill a bunch of people. Why? I don't know, because they're a little bit different to us. I don't like the way they look, and I don't like the way they act, so you know what? I'm going to eradicate them from the planet. And that's what they tried to do. For the Jewish people stuck in these ghettos, it was almost a godsend when they said, all right, we're going to move you on, we're going to throw you on these trains, and we're going to take you to another place. Surely, thought the Jewish population, it can't be any worse than what we're being in at the moment. We're starving here, our children are dying in here, we don't have any sanitation or anything at all, don't have any rights. Surely where they're taking us must be better. So they're thrown on these carriages, and sometimes they travelled up to 12 hours. Now when they arrived, they came into these camps, people would shove them out, pull them out, some maybe died on the ride over. In the winter, they'd open the carriages and there would be dead people already in there. They would pull them out. They'll see women, they'll see children, they'll see men, and they'll go, okay, there'll be a doctor there, and he'd look at them, he'd assess them and say, all right, you go to the left, you look like you're stronger, you go to the left, you don't look that strong, you're a child, you go to the right. The ones that that went to the left, the stronger ones, they were put to work. Not much food or anything like that, and they eventually perished. The ones that couldn't work, the elderly, the children, the disabled, the homosexuals, anything else that they felt was either a scar on society or couldn't work or anything, they said, come with us for a shower. Now, firstly, they would say, take your clothes off over here. Here's a bar of soap. There was a band playing. When you came out, you were starving. You'd been in this carriage for so long. There was a Jewish band playing. They looked a bit sad. They looked a bit upset, but there was music. There was sort of green field. There's these big fences everywhere. But you're going to have a shower. Surely that's all right. Sometimes they'll shave your head. Other times they'll just give you a bar of soap, say, take your clothes off and go into the shower. They'll go into the shower. There was no walls or anything like that. There was just shower heads. You start to turn the shower. You were packed in here with children, women, the elderly. You're like, oh, there's so many people wherever. I can't wait to turn these showers on. You try and turn the showers on, but they didn't work. There's no water coming out. They were fake. They were just stuck on the wall. You're like, what is this? What is this? Why is there all scratches on the walls and everything like that? Suddenly the roof would open up and they'll drop in what we call these Zyklon B tablets. Zyklon B is a very poisonous substance that reacts with oxygen and creates a poisonous gas. Within about 10 to 15 minutes, you would be dead if you breathe in this stuff. It basically rots your lungs out, eats them away. My goodness, this guy here. Eats your lungs out. They would get members of the camp to drag you out where your body would be exterminated. Absolutely horrible. No one knows how many people were murdered in this way. No one knows. Some of these guys did not have passports. Some of these guys did not have any tags of identification or anything like that. But millions were murdered this way. These concentration camps or satellite camps were set up everywhere. A lot of the times they weren't set up in Germany. They were set up outside. There were many in Czech Republic, there were many in Austria, as we hear now, many in Poland. I'm sure you've heard of Auschwitz, which was the worst. Not only were people exterminated on, but they were also experimented on. Some were thrown into water, various temperatures to see how long they'd last. Some were cut and seen how long they'll last bleeding out. Others were experimented on for the way they were. Maybe they were twins. Some would torture one twin, see what happened to the other one. There was one particular sicko in Auschwitz that liked to work on babies. Absolute sick individuals. Why this happened, don't ask me. I have no idea. Why these things were built, I don't know. I understand maybe the slave labor thing, don't get me wrong, it's horrible, but I see that they wanted to have a big war machine effective, and they used these people. People in history have been exploiting each other for thousands of years. But the actual business-like, systematic murdering that occurred, that cannot be explained. Neither am I justified, but I cannot explain that, and no one can to this day. To this day, the concentration camps, a few of them still exist. If you ask my personal opinion, I say you should burn them to the ground. Build a nice pretty flower bed or something like that. Screw having these monuments of sadness. I do not like them. I do not. I think they should be gone. Who needs to see it all? I do see their point. They say they have them as a reminder, as a memorial. They call them memorial camps now. You'll see memorials to all the different nationalities that were there in the different sects. There was obviously a fair amount and a large number of Jewish people. It was absolutely horrible what happened to them, but there were the others as well. It didn't have to be Jewish people. Sometimes you were just politicians, sometimes you were just a Christian, sometimes you just believed in things that they did not like. Sometimes your orientation was the other way. Sometimes you were born different, you were born disabled or something like that. Maybe you couldn't think as fast as others, your arms didn't work as well. They took you out as well. Absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But they exist now, and most children in the area, as part of their curriculum, go and visit these camps. I do see the point of it, kind of. Yeah, like, everyone's got their own opinion. I do understand, in the hope that it will never happen again. The countries admit that it happened. It's against the law to say that it didn't happen, which bizarrely there's a lot of people that did, considering there's this camp up here. I don't understand how. Mauthausen itself was a camp for political prisoners originally. It was built by political prisoners, for political prisoners. They contributed to the machine that would eventually murder them. It is a giant stone quarry. I can walk you and point out where the quarry is, and they were forced to carry the stones up these steps and build the prison we'll see very shortly. Don't get me wrong, they did bring Jewish prisoners here. They brought Russian prisoners here. They brought Polish prisoners. My goodness. Anyone that fought against them, or anyone that was against them, was sent to these camps. In these camps, they were forced to stand in line for hours for roll call. Didn't matter the weather. Didn't matter whether you could barely walk. If someone was missing, everyone had to wait. You had to drag your friend out, or your bunkmate out. The conditions in here were absolutely horrible. It was there to break you. If you escaped, 20 people would be shot. If you escaped and you were caught, you got to choose the 20 people that were shot. Very, very tough. It was all designed to break your spirit. And contribute more to the war machine. And when you were done, you were no longer needed. Under any circumstance, you were exterminated. Now, Mauthausen itself, yes, political prisoners. It did have a large number of Jewish population. It had a large number of Russians, Polish. They did do experiments here. Not too much. There is a laboratory as such if you do want to go visit it. It's just a stone bed these days. Please do not go in if you don't want to, though. Please do not go in. These days you'll see the stone walls. They do have a chamber here where they burnt the bodies.